Good morning, everyone. Thank you for waking up early and being here at 8 o'clock. Before we get started, I want to just go over a few housekeeping notes. If you could turn off or set your phones to vibrate, and please complete the session evaluation in the mobile app because we need your feedback. CEU information is available at the back of the room. Ask the monitor for assistance or visit room N220E with questions. Make sure you scanned your badge or you had your badge scanned when you came in so that you can record any CEU attendance. And also be sure to visit the Coverings Lounge, booth 3919 for more educational opportunities. This morning, I am pleased to welcome Steve Kleber with Kleber & Associates. Steve is the founder of Kleber & Associates, K&A, a full-service marketing and communications agency founded in 1987 with a focus on the home and building channel. Steve is a passionate force in applying both traditional and non-traditional marketing approaches and forging alliances with key influencers to create impactful marketing and sales alignment programs that deliver results. He has had deep understanding of the home and building industry and brings valuable insights on current trends and how they relate to consumers, architects, distributors, builders, remodelers, designers, and manufacturers. Steve frequently speaks at key industry events on the topics of consumer behavior and marketing methods that build brands and is an ongoing contributor to noted industry publications and podcasts. He has presented at large national conferences such as Coverings, International Builders Show, Kitchen and Bath Industry Show, Remodeling Show, and Pacific Coast Builders Conference, along with regional meetings such as the Florida Green Building Coalition's Green Trends Conference and Southern Building Show. A graduate from the University of Georgia, Steve is the president of the National Remodeling Foundation and immediate past president of the National Kitchen and Bath Association's Center for Kitchen and Bath Education and Research. He also serves on the board of the Home Projects Council and on the National Association of Home Builders, NAHB, Global Opportunities Board. Additionally, K&A is an active member of the National Association of the Remodeling Industry, National Kitchen and Bath Association, American Association of Advertising Agencies, American Marketing Association, and Public Relations Society of America. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, CJ. And thank you, everyone, for getting up early and coming out to Coverings. It's so nice to be here with all of you today. We're going to speak about sales and marketing alignment and the converse, sales and marketing misalignment. And I'm going to share with you a lot of insights, research, and experiences that Kleber & Associates has actually conducted in the field. Before we get started, CJ mentioned a minute ago a few housekeeping tips. This course is CEU approved for the AIA continuing education and also for IDCEC CEU credits. All right, let's get started. Today, I'm going to help you understand how your sales and marketing efforts, when they are aligned, can generate a more effective go-to marketing strategy and ultimately drive an increased bottom line. During the presentation, we'll cover how to identify sales and marketing misalignment, how to build sales and marketing teams that work together, and crucially, how to maintain that sales and marketing alignment when you have achieved it. At the end of the presentation, we'll leave plenty of time for questions, but if you want to interrupt at any point and get some additional clarity, please, let's keep this interactive, so feel free. Step one is to recognize the problem, identifying what sales and marketing misalignment is. The challenge we experience most frequently in building products is missed sales targets. That's because in business, sales and marketing teams often work in silos, and they don't see eye to eye. They tend to point fingers at each other. Sales never follows up on their leads, is what marketing says about sales. They want to participate at industry trade shows, but in marketing, I'm afraid they're going to go off script that we've worked so hard to create the unique selling proposition messaging. And marketing says that sales has no clue what kind of campaigns we're running. On the other hand, the finger points, and what sales typically says about marketing is, marketing has no idea what it's like to be out there in the field, fighting hand-to-hand combat in the trenches. Then they say, marketing is an expense to our organization. We're the ones that drive revenue. And they complain that marketing produces leads that just aren't qualified. So let's talk about some statistics on how sales and marketing is aligned. Think about it. 60% of the sales pipeline is stuck with no decision pending. 25% of the sales leads and collateral that marketing creates is simply never used. That's a lot of wasted effort. 30% of sales reps claim that they spend 20 to 50% of their valuable time creating new marketing materials or modifying or even looking for marketing materials that they can use. And that equates to less than 35% of sales reps' time is actually spent on selling. Close to 78% of newly hired sales reps take 6 months or longer to become fully proficient at selling. But when they work together, sales and marketing teams can create and execute campaigns that are better targeted, more effective, and have more tangible success metrics. When sales and marketing are closely aligned, companies are 67% better at closing deals and enjoy 35% higher customer retention. So what's the problem? This alignment only happens in 8% of companies. That's not so impressive. There's some telltale signs that cross-team collaboration is going poorly. It's missing sales targets. Before I started Kleber & Associates Marketing and Communications, I worked my way through school as a waiter. I started in the back of the house as a chef and then moved to the front of the house. And that's how they call it in the restaurant business, the back of the house and the front of the house. And as I progressed into sales and marketing for building products, I learned that there was a lot of relevancy that I learned in the restaurant business. In the back of the house, the chef created the cuisine that drove the customers into the restaurant, and in the front of the house, the waiters had the unique opportunity of face-to-face contact with the customer. What would happen is the waiter would come into the back of the house and talk to the chef and say, the customer wants a little bit more of this and a little bit less of that, and the chef really wasn't appreciated on what it would take to make that customer happy. So what we established was regular meetings between the front of the house and the back of the house. And it's very similar to what we recommend now for sales and marketing teams for building products. To have regular meetings, crucial to keep those teams aligned and making sure the communication goes well back and forth. Otherwise, you risk team members that become disengaged and, to quote one of my favorite Led Zeppelin songs, you set the stage for some serious communication breakdown. Can you imagine from our example in the restaurant world, if the waiter took things one step further and pulled out his spices or her spices and actually adjusted the cuisine on the way out to the table to make the food the way they thought it should taste? Or a chef that was so inflexible as to not participate and to say that his or her cuisine was just right and that they should eat it the way it was served. This is an example of when front of the house and the back of the house share, they're able to learn from each other, whether it's an ice cream cone or a 4-course meal. So how do we put the pieces together so that sales and marketing are aligned? During the pandemic, after we got tired of Netflix, there were a lot of folks that bought puzzles. Interestingly enough, the sales went through the roof. We've all attempted to put together a jigsaw puzzle before. You lay out all the pieces and turn the gray side down and the color side up. You look for the straight edges and the corners right, and you try to put it all together. The goal is to create order so that you can solve the puzzle. If you think about it, sales and marketing alignment is really not that much different from completing a puzzle. Ultimately, it's about cooperation and balance and a common vision. So how do we get there by building sales and marketing teams that work together? At a very basic level, well-aligned organizations do better than their competition. They allow sales to focus on selling and for marketing to support sales. They create highly relevant marketing strategies and tactics. In other words, they nurture each other. In the example of the puzzle, can you imagine if there were two boxes, each with a different picture on the cover, and the teams were seeking to put the same puzzle together, but they were looking at a different cover? And when they put the blue pieces and the red pieces and the brown pieces together, they were trying to create a different puzzle from each other. And that's what happens in sales and marketing misalignment. The idea is to come up with a common vision and then to work backwards, to visualize the same results and to cooperatively focus on that shared outcome. But before we create a team, it's important to know thyself. If you think about it, a team is made up of course, individuals. And each of those individuals contribute to the shared goals. So we have to understand that each individual has biases, preferences, and yes, baggage. And so what we recommend is we create personality tests in order to evaluate the unique differences of each person. And there are easy to accomplish programs like Myers-Briggs and DISC that can provide insights on those individuals and how they can work together to form more successful teams. Based on my 30 years of experience in this industry, marketers are half artists and half scientists, but they do want hard data to back up their decisions. Salespeople assume marketers aren't interested in numbers. To salespeople, it's all about the bottom line. But interestingly enough, marketing folks do crave data. They just use a different language. They talk about open rates and follows and shares and gross rating points. So it's important to find a common language. Even if teams are using different measurements, they both understand that sales funds marketing and marketing helps generate sales. And when they understand that, and we have established their unique preferences, they can work better together. And it helps sales see the value of artistic creations like PR and marketing, which they now learn is harder to quantify, but integral to helping them build their sales. The goal is the same. Sales is the bottom line, even if marketing wants to talk about click-through rates and conversions. At the end of the day, everyone wants to keep score and know what winning looks like. The important thing is to create a single understanding and actually to create a leader that can facilitate that cross-platform discussion. Now, it doesn't have to be a single person. It can be a team, and that team doesn't need to be permanent. And they don't need to be senior, pecking order, which is typically what happens in businesses. Instead, it should be somebody or a team of people who can ask, what if? How about? And why not? Salespeople understand the marketplace, and marketers understand how to engage that marketplace. But it's not enough to just establish sales and marketing alignment. You need to build upon it and to grow it. Much like when you plant a seed, it needs water and nutrients in the soil. Collaboration is the key. Alignment starts with shared experiences. It develops into empathy and creates trust and inspiration, and it drives collaboration. So here's some steps that your organization can take to reach that alignment. Remember, everyone is seeking mutual reward, more customers, increased brand awareness, and higher profits. It's important to celebrate the journey. You know what they say? It's a marathon, not a sprint. Both sales and marketing need to understand the same customer journey, or they end up like that example with the puzzle where they're looking at a different picture. So we think it's critical to hold monthly marketing and sales meetings, not just marketing meetings and sales meetings, but sales and marketing alignment meetings, and to benchmark the marketing materials. Remember, this has to be a joint exercise. One of the most critical factors we have found, and it's the easiest to solve, is that the sales team is using a different CRM platform than the marketing team. CRM, customer relationship management. Often we find the sales team is using Salesforce.com or similar, and we find that the marketing team is using HubSpot or Marketo. Both of them are doing a really good job at maintaining what we call ranking data, where they're scoring the value of the prospect as opposed to trying to send the same message at the same time to everyone. And we call that the funnel. The funnel has, obviously, by its shape, a larger circle at the top, and then it narrows down into what we call middle of the funnel. It starts with what we learned in Marketing 101 in school. Awareness, consideration, intent, trial, purchase, right? Awareness. I've heard of you. I've heard of your product. I've heard of your service. I'm aware. Consideration. I would consider, now that I know more about your product or service, I would consider using that. It would be in my, what do they call it, the consideration set. And then we get to the crucial concept. It's called intent. How do we measure intent? That's middle of the funnel content. So perhaps on your website there would be information that says, what does it look like or smell like or taste like in order to be a customer for you? And when someone goes to that content on your website or on your campaign landing pages, they're raising their hand and they say, I have intent. I'm exhibiting buyer behavior. Awareness, consideration, intent. Then we move to trial. I'd like to take a look at a sample. I'd be interested in a demo. Let's work on a little project together before we get married. And then purchase. When the purchase order comes and the angels sing. Ah. Awareness, consideration, intent, trial, purchase. When we get to the middle of the funnel of that ranking data, we know that that prospect is worth investing more time in. So it's time to measure. What do they say? If it isn't measured, it didn't happen, and only the things that are measured are acted upon. I cook at home. I still enjoy coming from the restaurant business. I love to cook at home. And at home, a little pinch of this and a little pinch of that. But when I worked at the restaurant, everything had to be measured. Everything had to be weighed. And that created efficiencies and consistent experiences. You know, McDonald's is probably the best. And I know we laugh at the concept of McDonald's representing cuisine, but they are excellent at framing expectations. From Topeka to Taiwan, every quarter pounder with cheese tastes exactly the same. And there's 2 pickles in the center of the bun so that they don't land in the customer's lap. It's no different in marketing and sales alignment. We have to benchmark the collateral materials, understanding which ones are highly successful, what campaigns are moderately successful, and unfortunately, which of those are not successful at all. And then just like this image of pruning, it's important to review what's working and to cut out the dead wood. That's what they call it in gardening, right? To prune out the dead wood so that everything else can grow. We believe in the 80-20 rule, and you've heard 80-20 rule before in business. 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people. In sales and marketing alignment, it's a little bit different. The 80% is what you maintain. Keep the 80% of what's working and continue to do it, and only prune back 20%. Of course, as we said, everything has to be measured in order for you to determine what is performing and what is underperforming. But here's the secret. When you prune out the 20%, you want to replace it with innovations and incubations. These are coming from the session that we talked about before that said, what if, how about, and why not? Those are the ideas that you bring back in a regular fashion to replace the 20% that's underperforming. Now, these ideas have not been battle tested, so it's very similar to how Babe Ruth came up to the plate. He struck out more than anyone else, but he also hit the most home runs. And that's where that incubation lab and innovation comes in to replace that 20%. The goal is to figure out what's working, and then, this is going to surprise you, throw it all away, at least on paper. Because the idea is to get out into the real world and walk in each other's shoes. We recommend exchange students so that the folks from the marketing department actually sit in the office when they are in the office or in Zoom meetings with the sales folks. That way they can literally feel what it's like to be involved in their day-to-day business. But it's not just in the office or on Zoom meetings. We suggest that they actually get in the car and share windshield time with the salespeople. Why should salespeople be the only one who understands the voice of the customer? When the marketing people literally ride along with the salespeople, they show up on CEU courses, lunch and learns at architects, listening to the voice of the customer. What questions are architects asking? Or at the supply counter at the local supply house. What are the concerns of purchasing before they build and buy the product? This way they have unique insights into the sales and marketing and what we call the voice of the customer. It provides an opportunity for both sides to share knowledge in a personal and connected way, literally in the same car or in the same lunch and learn. Because as we know, when market and products thrive, it's done with out-of-the-box thinking. You know the old saying, that's just not the way we do things around here? Cross that off the music sheet. That should never be said. We want to encourage innovation through shared experiences. But back to the restaurant analogy. When I started in the first restaurant, I realized that the waiters were all the ones that made the money. In fact, that's why I moved from the back of the house to the front of the house. I wanted a little bit more of that change. But when I went to a more progressive restaurant, I found an interesting business model that has always haunted me and contributed to my suggestions about how sales and marketing alignment works. In this case, the tips are pooled. The waiters didn't get all of the bottom line, as salespeople often do. Instead, the bus staff, those men and women who clean the tables and bring the ice to the bartenders, got a piece of the action. Because management understood that waiters alone weren't going to be enough to be able to sustain the operation. And when the tables were cleaned, there were more of what they called the tables were turned. And customers were able to establish more success for the bottom line when the tables turned quicker. And bartenders were able to continue to serve drinks when their ice was filled. Not everyone is incentivized by cash. Most people are, but back to that personality test, it's important to be able to understand what motivates folks. Often contests and prizes, or just plain recognition, bonuses, extra days off. These are ways that you can motivate a team besides cash. It's important to learn how people want to be rewarded as opposed to deciding for them what's right. It just takes asking and then rewarding them accordingly. When they're recognized for their contributions, whether it's cash or days off, the team members will create positive forward momentum. Now, of course, you've got to take a step back and get buy-in from the top, because we're changing the whole way that they think. The top thinks that sales are the ones who should be rewarded because they are the ones that affect the bottom line. It's no different than that restaurant that I worked at where only the waiters were given the tips. One critical factor besides getting top down is the resisting of hoarding data. You know, they say information is power, and it's true. And people tend to create job security by hoarding those metrics. But we talked about how it's important for those metrics to be shared across the table from sales and marketing. So the data has to be accepted and accessible to both teams. And it's not just a one-time event. It has to be reviewed because that data will change. And we want to pay attention to the evolving trajectories. Is it going up or is it going down? And so we measure a lot of information. We create incremental milestones so that we regularly research the data and don't assume that the last report is still valuable. We recalibrate. So it's important that this is not a once and done or a set it and forget it operation. That way, we can adjust course if needed. We want to be agile and adaptable because the marketplace will change on us. So at our agency, we understand the importance of sales and marketing alignment. I want you too to appreciate it with some best practices. We want to continue to look for opportunities to drive collaboration to achieve those shared goals. We want to bring sales and marketing teams together to create common ground, balance, and harmony. And we want to make sure that the lines of communications are open. We've all played that game back in grade school where it was called telephone. We whispered into one person's ear, and that person whispered into the next person's ear. And by the time it got around the room, the message had completely changed. It's important in sales and marketing alignment to make sure that that message is not garbled. So we want to develop integrated marketing plans that has both buy-in from sales and marketing. They want to own it. They want to have a single vision that can come from both sales and marketing so that the salespeople are not using the marketing plan. Instead, they're both using a sales and marketing plan. And then it's important to maintain that balance so that marketing sales are equal on the playing field and they have an equal amount of pecking order in order to establish that maintenance. Any questions? All right, I want to show you a couple of real-world examples, some case studies of my agency that we actually installed this kind of process so that you can get a little bit better feel about how this works. I've protected the names of the brands to protect the innocent. The first example is a company that manufactures artisan-crafted wide plank wood flooring. I know a lot of you at the covering show are interested in surfaces, so I thought this one would completely resonate for you. The marketing team came to the meeting and said, we want to create a national campaign. After all, that's the best way to get the lowest cost per thousand. And they talked about the number of eyeballs they were going to reach. The sales force would have nothing of that. Each one of the 6 regions claimed that their message had to be unique because they had different motivations in their marketplace. Some of the southern states used lighter colored floors and didn't want to see dark floors in their advertising. There was different decor, and each of the 6 regional showrooms were important to management. So we created a campaign where there was a harmony between what marketing wanted for efficiency and what sales wanted for customization. We met with regional design influencers and asked them what was important for wide plank wood floors. And as it turned out, it was a win-win because the campaign wasn't any more expensive than rolling out the national campaign. The first step was to interview the stakeholders. Sales and marketing, of course, but interestingly, we also interviewed customer service. And if you think about it, customer service also has the voice of the customer because they're the ones who are hearing with warranty claims and installation problems. And so there was a unique voice. So instead of just sales and marketing, we actually had a triad where customer service was involved. And we wanted to get their feedback on the brand, on the product, the competitors in each region, and the overall conditions of the marketplace. We created a gap analysis to determine which areas were not in alignment and where there was room for improvement. Then we held a right start session where we brought the people together to confirm the goals and objectives and to refine the core messaging, that is, the unique selling proposition. We worked closely with each of the 6 showrooms out in the field in their design centers and to identify and nurture the relationships that they had with individual designers and architects and specifiers in their region. And what we came up with was very, very interesting and very cost-effective and very relevant. And that was that we developed brand ambassadors in each of the 6 regions. And it turned out it wasn't expensive. As I said, the cost was the same as rolling out the national campaign. Why? Because those brand ambassadors had something in it for them. They were able to participate in the campaigns in their region, where we highlighted them on the local website. And that allowed for their products and photographs to be highlighted in the region that they were most relevant to. That allowed our client to be able to actually put horsepower and drive eyeballs and referrals to these brand ambassadors, who in turn became advocates and apostles for the wide plank flooring. We placed them in public relations, e-newsletters, ads, and other media. And that way the brand ambassadors not only was the voice of the brand, but also the face, where they would participate in regional events like Design Chicago, or when we launched a new virtual showroom in Washington, D.C. They participated in regional events, local events, NARI nights, NKBA chapter events, AIA events, and they were actually there speaking for the brand. That way the sales team got their own special advocate in each region, and the marketing team was able to create that selling proposition that was cost effective. The next example is a manufacturer of architectural products like railings and awnings, metal more so than any other fabrication, since we just started talking about wood. The company wanted to create synergy between their sales and marketing team, which consisted of sales reps, both company-owned and independent sales reps located throughout the country. Marketing was creating collateral that the sales team said just wasn't resonating. And the two were pointing fingers at each other like you saw before. And they couldn't figure out how to resolve their differences. One of the interviews, there was a voice in the back of the room that said, "You want us to market this new product? We've never seen it. We've never actually held it in our hands." And that was the aha moment. So we got the marketing folks, as we talked about before, to have the windshield time, and they rode along with the salespeople. They went to lumber yards and other dealers to talk to customers with the sales folks in a real-world setting. We had an aligned marketing program based on that sales and marketing road trip. We created what we call quarterly events. It was time where no business was conducted during those days. Everything that people did, they stopped doing so that they could focus in on that quarterly event for each quarter. They took a different path to work. They wore different clothes. Everything was different during that quarterly event. So they could, what if, why not, how about? Those are the kinds of opportunities that they discussed in order to create consensus and ownership. They set time aside to refresh the messaging. And then it wasn't just the salespeople who were saying that marketing isn't creating collateral that wasn't resonating, because they actually participated in creating that messaging. And guess what? The marketing folks participated in hands-on demonstrations, showing to the salespeople that not only had they seen the new product, not only had they touched the new product, but they understood how to install it. So at the national sales meeting, here's a picture of shoulder to shoulder, the marketing folks and the sales folks working from the field with hands-on training that allowed everyone to try their hand at this product. What better way to sell and market to actually install? And I'm sure some of the tile brands here in the room could gain some valuable insight from this kind of opportunity. So these are just a few examples of ways to maintain sales and marketing alignment. I wonder if I could ask anyone if they had a similar circumstance where sales was pointing a finger at their organization at marketing or marketing at sales. You guys are already aligned. That's wonderful. Anyone? Is there any challenges in a similar kind of structure that you've had to overcome? Getting management buy-in. One of the ways that we've solved that management buy-in challenge is to convince management that the marketing budget should be designed as a byproduct of sales. They're used to selling with the bottom line, but they're not used to developing marketing budgets. And so often what we had found is that the management was treating, similar as the restaurant, that sales budgets were based on sales performance and commissions. But marketing budgets were just a different mechanism associated with how they established those. Everyone did it differently. But when we created an actual business model where sales funded marketing, and as sales continued to grow, the marketing team's budget continued to grow, because that's what we learned marketers want to do. They want to spend money. We like to talk about investing money, but this way it allowed management to be able to create a discipline associated with how they were funding marketing. So it wasn't just an alignment that was talking about harmony, but also how to create a business model. So as the marketing team continued to invest more dollars, sales would continue to grow. As sales continued to grow, the marketing department would continue to have larger budgets and be able to accomplish more. And that's how they did it. Any other questions? Any other thoughts? I've got a handout in the back of the room if anyone would like to have some synopsis associated with what we talked about today. And if I can provide any additional information, it would be my pleasure. Welcome to Coverings, and thank you for being here.